Great morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today on this beautiful Tuesday. For those of you that are new, welcome to our Breakthrough Mastermind group. Today's topic is going to be on marketing, which is such a critical element. Regardless of what stage you are in your business, this is always something that's relevant. And there's nobody better to speak about this topic than Lisa. I'm so excited to hear from her. She's got an incredible presentation that she's put together for us, guys. So again, for those of you that are new, very simple. What we're going to do is we're going to give Lisa the floor for about 5 to 15 minutes. She's going to present her information. Then once she concludes, we're going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions in the meantime, go ahead and jot it down. But let me introduce Lisa. Guys, Lisa is somebody that I actually met in a networking group almost a year ago. It's crazy to think about that, Lisa. It's been almost a year, but just absolutely somebody that you want in your corner. I mean, from what I've experienced and learned over the last year, she's an incredible wife, an incredible mother. Not only that, but she's just an absolute rock star in the marketing world. She's been doing this for over 15 years. And then on top of all of that, she's got this really unique, cool fusion of yoga, where she has over 500 hours as an instructor, blended in there. So just a very unique, incredible individual. She's based out of Jersey. So those of you that haven't had the opportunity to meet her, you definitely want to get an appointment with her, get some time with her. So go ahead and use that chat. But without further ado, Lisa, I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you. What an amazing intro. And it was great. I think I met most of you last week during the session. So it's really, really good to see you again. And I've connected with some of you on LinkedIn. Looking forward to some one-to-ones. But yeah, as Keegan mentioned, I kind of have this, I'm a Gemini, so I have these two sides of me. I have a yoga studio, which is just my passion project, and then my marketing agency, which I'm also passionate about and also pays the bills. So we work with small to mid-sized companies, and marketing is one of those really kind of a massive term. And I get a lot of people that come in thinking in the beginning that what I do is publicity. They're like, oh, marketing. Yeah. Could you write a press release for me? And I'm like, totally different. So I'm going to do a super high level. I'm sure a lot of the stuff you guys know. So if there are questions, I can dive deeper, or happy to do a one-on-one. But I am going to share this little presentation so we have something to look at. All right. So, everyone wants to know, all right, yes, marketing's massive. There's so much to know, but what are the things that I need to know to make the biggest impact in my business? So these are the 20% of the tips that make 80% of the impact. Very high level. What's marketing? We all have competitors no matter what we do. So we want to increase our brand awareness. And then we also want to build a pipeline of qualified leads. The third thing on here is we want to continue to communicate with our clients. And it's not just continue. We want to make sure that that's really effective communication that's in our voice, right? So it sounds like a person. People want to do business with a person. And we want to make sure that it sounds like you. So I start with content, because content truly is king of all of the marketing tactics. And there are so many different things that you can do as part of your content marketing plan. So if you were going to work on one thing, I would say start with content. But before we dive into this quickly, make sure the very first thing you do before you start doing these tactical things, because I just didn't have enough time to talk about it, understand who your customer is. Build a customer profile. I love talking about that stuff. We're doing that in my group marketing session now, filling out this massive form so you can see in your head who your customer is and then build that avatar. Then once you can see this person in your mind, and most likely it's not you are not your customer most of the time, you're writing all of this content towards that avatar. All right, so we're creating value, we're sharing valuable content. Again, it's to attract new prospects, turning them into customers, hopefully. It's to really show your thought leadership and your expertise, differentiate yourself from your competitors. And then it's also a great way to stay in touch and re-engage with existing customers, because some of them don't hear from us that often. So there are a few different ways that you can keep in touch with them. Content is necessary for every single stage of that buyer's journey, which is awareness, interest, want, and buy. And then content is amazing for search engine optimization, SEO, because let's say you're writing a blog, which is what this is going through. If you're writing a blog, that lives forever. It's up on your site. There are plenty of third-party sites that accept guest contributions like Medium, and Ariana Huffington has one that focuses more on wellness. Plenty of others, there's a lot of trade publications. So by you writing a blog, you can get great search engine optimization because that piece is living forever online. And you can potentially get that onto third-party sites. Plus you can chop it up into social media posts, which we'll talk about in a second. So this whole idea of creating content on a blank piece of paper, even though it's something I love, it's a little overwhelming because you're like, crap, what do I write about? Like I'm supposed to do this either every week or every month. Every month is fine. Every week, great. So here are some tips to make it a little bit easier for most of us are running our business and doing everything else. So instead of that blank piece of paper, think about interviewing one of your clients or customers. That can make a tremendous blog. Get a guest poster that will write for you and that's somebody that hopefully has a large following so that you can, or maybe similar, right? So then you can tag them and be like, hey, thank you, so-and-so at so-and-so. And then they'll share because they want to show their expertise and you'll share it and exponentially expand your network. Doing a poll, people love to fill out, pick one of these three, do a poll, that could be interesting. Define jargon. This is something I do with my accounting client, especially because everybody speaks in their jargon. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about for the first month. So we did a whole series on the business entities. There are like 12 of them. Which business entities right for me? What's the deal between, hiring a consultant or an employee or a contractor and an employee? So define jargon. That you can probably get a few blog posts out of that. Profile some of your staff. Let's get to really know them so we know, again, the person behind the business. Day in the life can be more fascinating than you think. UGC is user-generated content. So get some stuff from your fans. And then debunking a myth is one of my favorite because most industries, there are myths about them. So go ahead and say, hey, most people think marketing's publicity. Here's how it's different. All right, so some of the content, we talked about blogs. There's gated downloadable content. This could be a one sheet that maybe has, like I have a property management client. He deals with luxury homes in Manhattan. The 6 tips you need to prepare your home for the winter. There's our downloadable content. Get it up on the site. Have them put in name and email address. The less you ask for, the better. Now you can add them to your database and they've got something valuable. So you're building them into, it's part of your funnel, which I'm sure you've all heard of. Webinars, especially during the pandemic, we saw our webinar attendance quadruple during the pandemic. I think it's leveled out a little bit. But if it's a good webinar and maybe you get a couple of people on a panel to talk with you, it's not just you, this could be really, really interesting stuff. Emails and newsletter. I feel like newsletter is like a little dated sounding, but it's kind of the same. You're just updating them on what's going on. We do this for my audio video production client. Here's where we were. Live events are coming back. Here's where we were, and here's some shots and video outtakes. And then you've got your landing pages, which are a shorter version of your website, and that might just promote an event that's coming up. Social media is massive, and I'll try not to spend too much time on this. There was some crazy statistic that I'm just putting something together for my group marketing program. So just so you know, it takes about 7 touches to really get to somebody. You've probably heard as many as 16, but 7 is kind of the average. As far as social media, people spend on average 2 hours and 42 minutes daily on social media. That's on a platform. It takes about an average, like I said, of 7 impressions for a marketing message to sink in. Starting with Facebook, this is the largest one. 7 in 10 adults are using Facebook, 55% female. About 59% of overall of social media users are on Facebook. So this is the biggest number of active users versus the other platforms. Average age is like 25 to 35, but there are definitely people outside of that. And it's a big place for business. I'd say about 80% of small businesses use Facebook to market their business. So you're posting on social to increase your brand awareness. You're increasing inbound traffic to your site, because even on Instagram, you're going to put your bio in your profile. Search engine optimization, Facebook, LinkedIn especially. These are incredibly important to your search engine. It's going to push you up in the organic rankings, assuming you're not going to do any paid advertising. It gives you that brand authority that we were talking about that a blog can give you. And then, as we mentioned, people want to do business with another person, not necessarily just a faceless business. Don't be afraid to mix up your social media content between like some personal stuff, some business stuff, thought leadership information, inspiring quotes, whatever, mix it all up. So here we have the list of platforms. Facebook, as I said, is number one as far as active users. They each have slightly different age groups. Facebook has a really robust business platform, really great advertising platform, not expensive to advertise on Facebook. LinkedIn, as you know, mainly B2B. It is more expensive to advertise on LinkedIn. I've had some success, some not so much. Facebook, I've had some decent success because you can go into Ad Manager and really hone in on exactly who you want to reach. Like I have an Episcopalian publication that I work with, nonprofit, and we want to reach people that relate to the Episcopal Church. And they also read this other thing called Episcopal Cafe. I'm able to select those things and put them in there and have this ad served to just those people. Twitter is more of a news platform. It's great if you're trying to get in front of journalists. You do need to post a lot. Some people say as many as 15 times a day, which sounds like craziness to me. But it's not a bad idea just to throw something out on Twitter if it's a thought leadership piece, or you just want to kind of troll and see what journalists are talking about. Instagram, as you know, very photo heavy, and there are posts, reels, stories, and live all within Instagram, all do very different things. And then the Google business profile, please make sure you have a Google business profile page. Incredibly important for SEO. Google loves it when you're using their different platforms, and they're going to reward you by boosting you up. Not only make sure this page is complete, but make sure that you update it at least once a week. And for my clients, we post at least once a week with some sort of update. Take that blog. It allows, I think, 1,500 characters per post. Just break it up into pieces, post it on there, and that blog has gotten you a lot of mileage. Also, you can post events on there. So really very important part of the mix. And then quickly with publicity. So this is also to position yourself as a thought leader. It's a great way to get some free exposure. You can give it a shot to write a press release yourself. There's plenty of templates out there. Please make sure it's newsworthy though. It's got to be, maybe you've rebranded, you're launched a new website, new logo, you've added a partner, you've finished a big project. As long as it's newsworthy, then it might get some pickup. Everyone should subscribe to what's called HARO, Help a Reporter Out. That's what it stands for. This is where it's free. You'll get emails. I get them 2 to 3 times a day. You can choose your industry. So I get like a business and finance one for those clients. And then there's a health and wellness one and a few others. So these are reporters from everything from like USA Today down to bloggers that need quotes and they need input. And so you can look through and submit, and you might get some pickup. Being a guest contributor, we mentioned. So Medium is great for that. You can go ahead, make a free account and post, and it looks really nice, add a photo to it, and it'll backlink to your site. And there are plenty of those other platforms. Podcast guests, I've had really great success in getting 2 different career coaches on podcasts. So I have a really good list that actually we're going through in my group marketing program where it's broken up by industry. And then you can reach out to the producer or the host, depending on the size of the podcast, and pitch yourself. for that. And then there's PR distribution platforms. Those are expensive. I subscribe to it. It's worth it because I use it for my clients at least 6 times a year or so. But that way you can curate a list of outlets to get your press release to. So that's a very quick overview of marketing. And I don't even know how long I took, but let me know if you have any questions.
Great job,
or
Lisa.
Something I didn't hit. Thank you.
So real quick, I'm going to pass it over to you, Dylan, but great job, Lisa. That was a ton of information, and actually that brought up a lot of questions for me. So I would love to ask you a couple things, but Dylan, go ahead.
Keegan, you can certainly go first, man. I just wanted to say that, Lisa, that was very impressive. I'm in a group. I'm firing text messages at my partners in my group chat saying, we got to subscribe to Haro. Do we have a Google business profile? So I loved all of that. I took a couple screenshots. You're in Jersey. I'm also in New Jersey. We will. I already messaged you. We'll have to connect. I'll shut up. That was great. Excellent.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm glad. I know it's a little bit of a fire hose, but I wanted to make sure that we got the top points.
No, one other thing I'll just share quickly. I'm new in the advertising and PR industry with an agency in Jersey that you might be familiar with just because they've been around forever. And I'd love to pick your brain on a million things, but Keegan, I'll let you grab it, man. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Let's talk.
Absolutely. You guys need to connect. So I'm just going to fire it off with one question to start, Lisa. And really quick, before I transition into this question, I think it's extremely important to establish one of the primary points that Lisa mentioned. And that is, when you're starting with marketing, you got to know who your avatar is. You have to know who your client is and the problem that you solve for them. It's so critical. When we're brand new in business, everybody starts off with this premise of, oh, I want to help everybody. I want to serve everybody because I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. My product is so good. But it's not the case. If you try to serve everybody, you end up serving nobody. So the question I have for you is, how many touches? And you mentioned this, right? You had given us a number. I believe you said around 7 or 9, but I think this is a fascinating point, because when we look at the 90s, on average, it only took a person 1 to 3 times to see a message. They knew who you were, they knew what you did, and it kind of just stuck with them. And then in the 2000s, we saw that shift, and then we saw it shift again. But I think it's a really relevant point, because when you brought up that stat of 2 hours and 42 minutes a day on social media, the average person, when we think of marketing, the two big words that stand out in my mind are reach and frequency. That is, how many times is the person seeing that message, and how frequently are they seeing it? We want to reach X amount of people and get them that message X amount of time. So what that essentially equates to is, if I see 1 million advertisements a day, I need to see 1 or 2 that really stick with me. So I'm just curious if you could just share just a tiny bit more on the touches, Lisa.
Absolutely. So everything you said is true, and you'll hear as many as 16 touches. So unfortunately, since the 90s, there have been so many additional ways to reach people, and our attention spans have shrunk, where if it's even a minute long, we're like, I'm out. Or it takes 3 seconds to load, I'm out. So you do need a minimum of those. I said 7 touches. I think that's on the low end. That's just like kind of a low average. You need to make sure that it's not just social media. So even if you're posting a few times a day on social and you're like, okay, I'm good, you need multiple channels. So again, that's part of what we're discussing with my group, is marketing channels is a whole module that we're discussing, because, okay, now that you've told me that I have digital, I have traditional marketing methods, meaning like print, radio, billboards, guerrilla marketing, trade shows, blah, blah, blah. What do I do? So a lot of it goes back to who your avatar is, what are he or she doing during the day? Are they going to Little League games with their kids? That might mean that you want to throw a banner in the outfield and sponsor the baseball softball league. So you do need multiple types of marketing to effectively reach your one person in your head, your avatar. And you need to do it consistently. Make sure that the voice is consistent and yours. Don't be afraid to have a sense of humor. Like too many people are too stiff. So again, even with my accountant, I made sure that he's a funny guy, the partner. And it was like, none of your stuff shows that you're a funny guy. So we made sure that we did some video. That's incredibly important. Make sure, so you're not just doing text. You're not just doing text with image. You're doing a mix of images, text, video, infographics. Do loads of video. As Keegan does amazing videos. And it's funny because we got to watch his evolution, right? As you were saying, you got more and more comfortable with it. I love your videos, Keegan. I think they're genuine, and they're really useful. So stick yourself on, just first of all, decide, okay, LinkedIn is my go-to. Those where my customers are, or Instagram or Facebook. Play around there and go ahead and use either Facebook Live, do an informal, kind of casual. There might be some stumbles in there. That's fine. You're human. Do that. Or go onto Instagram and use Reels or Stories or any of these other things, because there are some are permanent, some are going away, some show up on Facebook since Instagram's owned by Facebook. LinkedIn, go ahead, make sure there are videos on there. Those get the most engagement. So don't just go ahead, post and share and all that stuff. Make sure you do at least one video a week. I hope that answers the question. I kind of meandered.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Patty, I'm going to hand it over to you in a second. There were just a lot of stuff that you brought up there, Lisa. One of the things that I really, really want to resonate with everybody is the importance of consistency on all platforms. So Lisa made a very clear distinction in addressing your avatar between B2B or B2C. Regardless, you need to have consistency all the way from your webpage, your email footer, your messaging, your content creation. All of these things have to be consistent because we want people to know who we are on all platforms. And it doesn't really matter where they see that, but it's, oh my gosh, this is that guy. And we don't necessarily want to be put into a box per se, but we do want to be identified as the professional on that particular topic. So you had brought up a ton more stuff, but I'll come back to that. Patty, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because I get all different input. How long do you think these videos should be, whether it's informal or a little bit more formal?
So it depends on the platform, but the main answer is 58 seconds, which seems super specific, as short as possible. So Instagram and Facebook, 58 seconds. It's not going to accept more than that on Instagram. Might get you to 59. But people are out. They're not as interested in what you're saying as you are, unless you're going to make it super interesting. So just make sure it's valuable. You don't need to do as much of an intro. And it actually, when you edit yourself, it gives you now just the important elements. So I kind of love that editing process where you bring it down and distill it to just the most important information. If you're on LinkedIn, it can be 2 minutes. We've done 2.5, but I don't feel like people are watching the whole thing. So if you can.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that, but there's so many people say, oh, it needs to be at least 3 minutes or they're not going to pick it up and share it. So, I love the under a minute. I think that's awesome. That's so doable.
It is. And if it's great content, people will share it. If it's a 3-minute video and it's filled with just fluff, nobody's sharing that. I don't know why they would, but if it's something where it's like, oh my God, this was really smart, and people want to appear smart. Like I know things and I know the right people to share things. And so I would say the shorter, the better. And you won't even be able to do a longer one on Instagram or Facebook anyway. They won't accept the video.
That was great.
You're welcome.
So what?
Yeah, and the consistency, Keegan, you're right. I mean, sorry, just on that, that comes into branding. So your branding, that's your first impression, especially during the pandemic. We're not meeting people as much, but they look at your website, they look at your email, they look at your newsletter, whatever it is that you're touching them with. And even the typeface that you use, the colors that you use, even the way you appear on Zoom, like all of that is part of your brand, believe it or not. So how you come off on Zoom, are you paying attention? Are you whatever, is your hair brushed? Whatever. All of that stuff is now part of your brand. Like Zoom just got it added onto that. So the colors on your website, incredibly important. You'll notice a lot of greens and all natural, organic, purples and spiritual. So that's for a reason, because we have a reaction.
I love that.
Go ahead,
Dale. Go ahead.
I was going to say I had a question, but go ahead, Keeg.
No, man, all you.
All right, I'll ask it. All right. So, Lisa, myself and my partners are currently, getting ready to launch a business in the fintech space. I'll keep it that brief. So we just put together our business plan, and our marketing plan was the killer. I mean, we spent what felt like months and months and months on it. And my partner, and I guess I'm just asking your advice here. I'm more on the sales and business development side and come from that perspective, whereas my partner's way more analytical and organized and looking at the stats and the conversion rates of these paid ads and the audience that we're going to reach, and determining our financial projections to the T on what we could do on paid ads. And of course we're trying to get our conversion rate as close as we can based on all the research that's out there. And I look at it and I tell him and I say, listen, I don't want to rely so heavily on this hard data here. Is that a mistake? Should I not be saying, hey, listen, let's dumb this down a little bit, maybe give ourselves some breathing room, where he's like, no, listen, I believe if we reach this amount of people, we will have this many sales. And he's more by the book and believes the data, whereas I'm not. So I guess I just wanted your opinion on where's the balance?
Yeah, it's going to be a mix. You're going to be doing your own testing. So yeah, part of that is true. It's if you're looking at fintech companies and what they've done and here's the response rate they're getting, definitely I wouldn't take that with a grain of salt. I would be like, all right, I'm assuming that's good data that we're getting. But then you guys might be different. Like, I don't know specifically what you're doing, but you want to do some A/B testing and you want to try multiple ways of reaching out. And I'm assuming you're going to find that LinkedIn is best for you, but you might be surprised. Like, I don't know, maybe there's an Instagram audience out there for you. I doubt it, but do some testing and check it out.
Appreciate that. I'll definitely share that with the partners.
You're both right. You're going to have to do it a little bit on your own and then follow the data and see. And the data might be spot on, or it might not be right exactly for you guys.
No, you're totally right. But one thing you said, Lisa, is you have to, and I totally agree. You have to try everything.
Yes.
You gotta, don't go put all your eggs in one basket because you see the Facebook numbers and you're just like, oh, wow, let's just do that. You got to try a little bit of everything. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Julie, this is Jen. I'm sorry, Jen. Yeah, you do videography. And I didn't even talk about YouTube, but it's a whole other world. But yeah, average watch time, 45 seconds. Sounds right.
We often have clients come to us and they come with these grand ideas of, I want to make a 5 or 10 minute video. And, a lot of times they expect us to be like, yeah, that's great, because 5 to 10 minutes is going to cost more. But we're like, no, if you really want to share, we typically always recommend, depending on the video type, never over 3 minutes. So.
No, good. I'm glad you agree. Yeah. That's like a feature film, 5 to 10 minutes.
I heard that we officially have the humans have a shorter attention span than goldfish. I don't know if that was a joke on the internet or if
no,
it's true,
I actually saw this stat the other day. It's fascinating. So the goldfish was presumed to have the shortest attention span in the world. And then actually a month ago, humans were stated to have a shorter attention span. But, one thing that Jen just said, and I think this is an interesting point, because Gary Vaynerchuk, what he'll do is he will take one day and create all of his content for the entire month. And typically that'll look like the first or second day of the month, he'll actually be in the recording studio for 3 hours. And then what he'll do is he'll go back and he'll break all of those down into less than 3 minutes. On average, it's like a 20-second or a 2-minute or less video. And he'll break that 3-hour segment down into these tiny sections, and he uses that for the whole month. So now his marketing's done for the entire month. But you brought up a lot of other good points. I think one thing that I really love, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but what I've heard is that if you are, and this is primarily in regards to Facebook, but if you can get comments and hearts, those two things specifically in the first 2 hours of generating a post, then algorithmically, you're going to show up a lot more frequently. So I'm going to say that one more time. If you get comments and hearts in the first 2 hours of the post, you are more likely to get way more views. So that's relevant. And one of the things that Lisa was talking about with the consistency component that I think is really important is that people don't care about us, right? And I know Lisa's going to laugh because this is from Thrivers, but people, the first rule of marketing is people don't care about us. You may have heard this statement, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. And the same thing is relevant here. It's like when we're marketing, it's not about, oh, look at me, or, oh, look at my business, or this is what, I have going on. It's more about, hey, I understand that you are my client. You are my avatar. Here's a pain point that you have. Here's the solution for it. Right. And again, that kind of goes back a little bit more towards brand story that Lisa had mentioned, but I just thought that's really important because all the time we get onto this marketing platform, we talk about consistency and people start to talk about, oh, I'm doing this or I'm working on that, et cetera. And they lose their viewership. So I thought that was an interesting point, but I share that, especially the content the comment and the heart section, because my question to you, Lisa, is when we are generating content, do you have sort of a system or a formula that you direct people towards when they're creating that content?
Yes. So after you do your customer profile and come up with your avatar, another one of the first steps is to come up with your keywords and phrases. So these are the words and phrases that people are going to type into Google or any other search engine if they're using Bing, and they're going to find you, assuming they don't know the name of your company. But they need your services. They need whatever pain you solve. They're going to be typing that in. I know I do some weird Google searches sometimes. So you've got to think of those. Go into the keyword planner. It's a free Google tool. So when you go into the keyword planner, you're going to put together a list of your keywords and phrases. So for videography, it could be, corporate professional videos or whatever. And you're going to make sure that list you're using, don't keyword stuff, but you want to make sure that you're using those as part of your hashtags, as part of your social media posting content, and that a few of those are in your blogs. And again, don't use 20 of them because Google kind of sees through that, but use 5 of them and just put them in there. Yes, Patty.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask you, because one of the frustrating things, and I kind of moved away from Facebook, is their algorithms. They play around with how many people see. Like, I'll have a post and you get 150 comments, and then I'll have another one, you have 3. Well, why is that? But on what Keegan said, the hearts or the comments, now Fraser Brooks, who does all of that Facebook stuff, says it has to have at least 5 words or in the comment, or the algorithm won't pick that up. I don't know if you find that to be true. And then the other thing was with the hashtags, is, because again, you hear from this person, oh, it should be 3. You hear it should be 15.
5. Well, 5. Definitely not 15. 3 to 5 is usually fine. 3 is better. Some people say for LinkedIn, don't put the hashtags in your post. Put a comment after your post with your hashtags.
Okay.
You don't want to link out, especially from Facebook. Don't put a link. Don't say sign up, register, all that. They don't like that stuff. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook. So even for my Episcopal Journal client, they're a publication, we want them to sign up or donate. Or subscribe or donate, right. But I won't link them out. I just won't link them out because they don't like it. So yes, going back to the hearts and the comments, the more you can get of those, the better. You do want engagement. Facebook, Instagram, they love engagement. That's what they want to see. And they're going to favor those posts that get engagement. So a lot of times on LinkedIn, I know within some of my mastermind groups and other groups, it'll be like, hey, can you please comment on my post? So ask some friends. They don't need to know who it is.
I have a question. Yeah. You mentioned, both of you, about the Facebook comments and also the hearts. What happens if you just get one and not the other?
It's fine. Comments are the best thing you can possibly get. That shows true engagement. So if you can get people to comment and say, you know, hey, Matt, that was really smart. Thank you. Or whatever, you know, because most people just want to thumbs up it. It's just easy. And they're not even reading it. They're just like, yep, like, or heart. So if you can get some comments, then the Facebook algorithm, it is always changing, but they like that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, go ahead.
So if you, let's say you just get hearts and you don't get comments, is that a hindrance, or anything is better than nothing?
Anything's better than nothing. Engagement is good. Yeah, you want engagement.
But you can go in and comment on yourself. And I find that when I take the time to comment on other people's posts, they will then in turn comment on your post when you know, just as a courtesy, and kind of just because you build that relationship. Oh, well, she always comments, so I'm going to comment.
Yeah,
so it's
people are good. Yeah, people are good. They're going to want to give back. Absolutely. But don't be afraid to ask like 10 people just to, you know, that are even in this group. It's like, hey, I'm about to post something. If you guys could just comment on it, that would be helpful.
And what about tagging people?
Tagging is tremendous. Definitely
works on LinkedIn well.
Yeah, LinkedIn tremendously well. And that's where that whole like idea of getting a guest poster is good. You know, going back to the content, get somebody, tag them, they're going to share. You've just made their lives easier by providing them content. And that just exponentially grows the audience. So yeah, the more people you can tag in there. I know that's when I share and comment, is when I'm tagged.
I had another question for you, Lisa, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So as I said, I'm in advertising myself. So I have clients that I send e-blasts, newsletters, campaigns, blogs, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also do it for my own business, and they're, you know, tragically different for different, you know, all these different reasons. But, you know, you mentioned it even earlier. You said the newsletter kind of sounds dead and old, right?
Yeah.
But depending upon the industry, it's almost a requirement, right?
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say it that way, but like, you know, in finance, you know, if you're not given a more of a formal breakdown of your business or any updates weekly or monthly, I'm not saying you're falling behind, but that's certainly something that the audience expects. Versus, you know, sending them for a private yacht charter who needs to rent, you know, send it to all their brokers and everything. So it's like, I wanted to get your take on it because, you know, whether I like it or not, so many of my hours of the day are spent preparing and sending e-blasts, newsletters. What's your take on it? You know, as far as, everybody says Tuesday at 10 or Thursday is the best time to send it, or, you know, if there's any tricks or, you know, anything you'd have up your sleeve for that, I'd love to hear.
Well, I mean, very simply, as far as the days of the week, like, you know, don't do anything on Monday or Friday. And then, you know, first thing in the morning is best. The best newsletters are ones that have information that's valuable and it's short. There's one graphic designer that did a tremendous job during the pandemic. And we got connected at some point. He sent newsletters throughout the pandemic, just with fun, like YouTube videos that I clicked on. I rarely click on a newsletter. I just delete it right away. This guy did such a good job because it wasn't just about graphic design. And he did always have something about graphic design in there. But otherwise, it was like, hey, here's some fun things to watch. Like, did you know penguins did this? Whatever, you know, just bizarre stuff. And it gave him a personality. I was like, oh, he's a little quirky, but creative and entertaining. It worked. And this one guy, I meet so many graphic designers, he stayed top of mind with me. So that's the sort of newsletter where if it's fintech, tell me something that's going on right now. Like it's almost like breaking news or breaks a jargon, especially with you guys, jargon. I want that broken down a lot. So I feel like you had a million blogs just with that. We can be the guys that explain fintech, because otherwise it's like, I don't get it.
I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that, Lisa. The first part of our thing is educate. So we take a jargon term, you know, like the MACD indicator on the stock market, which nobody knows what would mean, but it's so important to our everyday lives that like we got to break this down in layman's terms for people and really hold their hands.
Yep.
So I'm happy to hear
that's part of your newsletter then. I mean, that could be like a, you know, and it's got to be well designed too? That makes a big difference. Like, is it in digestible chunks where I can just be like, oh, let me just grab that little piece of information, and then there's something else. And then of course there's a call to action at the bottom with some sort of downloadable, maybe gated content. Something, well, I wouldn't do gated on a newsletter. If it's an email blast and, you're trying to get them. Yeah. Email blast usually is trying to move them through the funnel a little bit. Newsletters are more like, hey, here's what's going on.
Sure.
Emails are totally different. Email, you could, be promoting an event, whatever it is. But yeah, I hope that answered the question. But
it certainly did. And I have a follow-up, but I don't want to take away from anybody else. Keegan, what do you think?
Go for it, man. We still have 10 minutes.
All right. On the same topic, kind of, Lisa, and I hope I'm not boring you here, but one of the things that, again, both for my client or for my business, whether I'm using different sending platforms like MailChimp or one of the older ones like Zoho, the getting the email through out of the promotions or the junk inbox is brutal right now. I've been now sending them on MailChimp. I don't really know so much about the other one, but on MailChimp is what I use. If we were getting 33% open rates and we were fired up about it, but we knew so much nobody was opening them because they were sitting in their promotional on Gmail and nobody's looking at that. Now, all of a sudden, our open rates jump. So I wanted to know if you knew any tricks, because people say, claim your domain, get rid of the image sizes and, make sure it's all. Do you have any advice as to how to get it out of that junk file?
It's really hard because a lot of that is done by Gmail, especially. They're just going to sort it no matter what you do. I mean, your subject line is incredibly important. So make sure that you have a really strong, non-spammy sort of subject line.
Emoji in the subject line. What do you think about that?
I love emoji in the subject line as long as it's appropriate. It's not too cutesy, but I have a retail client. She makes a lot of sense to, put emojis in there. I wouldn't use it for my accountant. It just doesn't seem appropriate. So it depends on what it is. The other thing I've used, so it's the spam issue, unfortunately, is going to be there, but play around with the subject line. And then GMass is interesting. Have you used GMass? It's an extension, free extension on Gmail. And it still gives you opens and other analytics, but it's more of those go through. Okay. So I'm texting it. Yeah, GMass is, I like it. I've used it a decent amount, and you can just put everybody in the two. You don't have to BCC. You can put like up to 50 people at a time, I think, in the to field. And then when you click, make sure you click GMass. And they're really good about reminding you, like if you try to push send, they're like, you're about to make a fatal mistake.
Yeah, like, we've all done that.
Yeah. And then instead you click the GMass button, and then that goes through individually to each person. And then you get the analytics.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I think that brings up another really good point, is the analytics side of things. We talked about the content and creating this information to show people, hey, we solved this pain point for you. But how often do we actually go in and look at those analytics? I mean, Jen had said that she went into the YouTube side and saw that the average video watch was 45 seconds. Well, that's important information to know. If you can determine that, hey, my average clientele is spending 45 seconds on a video, does it even make any sense for me to make a 3-minute long video? Probably not, because they're not going to watch the whole thing. So, going back and diving into these analytics, not just on our YouTube accounts, but also from everything that Dylan was just talking about, right? And narrowing down the more detailed, hey, are people opening these emails? What type of responses are we getting? These are things that play a major role. And I would highly recommend you incorporate this into your quarterly planning sessions, is going through those analytics and that reflection period. But the other thing, guys, is that now I'm a huge promoter for this, and Jen's probably going to laugh because we've talked about this a lot lately, but having a book as a business owner is the modern era of a business card. It is so advantageous. And by the way, guys, it doesn't have to be a long book. It could be a 50-page, 35 pages. As a Man Thinketh is 24 pages or something like that. Like it's really, really small, but the average person knows what that book is, right? So my point is that having a book or some form of that content is such a massive element of helping market yourself, having that consistency, getting that low entry point to solve a pain point for somebody, and then having a larger back end solution for future problems to come. So I thought those were two big things. But an underlying premise that we keep hearing, and Patty brought this up and Dylan brought this up, is quite simply a value add. You know, when we produce these weekly newsletters or even monthly newsletters, it is not only just to stay relevant, but I want to bring people 100% more value than what their expectation was. So now when they're receiving all this value, it is, wow, this person actually goes above and beyond because they really care about what they're doing. But they also identify you as the person to help solve these problems. So I just thought those were two really important things to bring up. Is number one, the analytics, going back and actually taking an intentional time to look through your videos, look through all these nitty gritty little details to help you move forward. And then that second part is really considering to have a form of a book or even something small that you can pass on to clients. It might only be 30 pages or 50 pages, but hey, you want to know more about me? Here's a quick book. Would love for you to check it out. Boom. Now they know a little bit more about you. They know what you have going on. And now they're more interested because, again, you're not talking about you. You're talking about the problem that you solve for people. And that's really what the key of marketing is. So I just thought those were relevant points based on everything that people have been sharing. And again, just to go to those analytics and then also have another entry point product that solves a pain point, but is basically just a door to get them to your bigger end product.
Yep, that's true. And it's another downloadable element that you can have to build your email database, because your email database is probably the most important asset that you have. You own it. Let's say Facebook goes away tomorrow. There goes Instagram, gone. You lose all your followers, but your email database, you're going to always have that. So that's should be a real big focus, is building that email database.
What are your thoughts on
add in one more thing?
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're fine. Go ahead.
No, it's all you. It's all you. Go ahead.
Okay. So anytime I'm in a conversation, especially in this type of environment with a discussion on marketing, I think another thing that I always find super important to bring up is when you're marketing your business, remember you're always marketing yourself. And you had mentioned, Lisa, mixing kind of having that mix of personal and your business. And it's all too often that we see people that have those business posts, and then you go out to another form of social media and you see those personal posts, and the core values, go back to last week, don't match up.
Yeah.
And that's so important to me. I just recently did a talk with a group of high school seniors, and we were there to talk about sales and marketing. And one of the main things that we hit on over and over and over is, even as a high school senior, you're marketing yourself now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, we preach to those younger folks.
Yeah.
But then as we get older and we get in our business, sometimes adults forget that as well. And it's so key and so important. I don't post a lot on social media personally. I like to be somewhat of a private person, unless it's my closer network. But I also always am very careful to make sure whatever I'm posting on LinkedIn matches the person that I am on any other social media network or even in person versus what you would find.
Absolutely. You're dead on with that. You're your brand. You are a brand. And that's so important. I have a daughter who is just turned 19 yesterday, actually. But the same thing, like she's in college, and it's like, don't post yourself falling down drunk in a hallway. Like, we all know it happens, but your employer one day is going to be looking at that. But you're right. Adults do some really stupid stuff too, because they feel like, oh, well, Facebook is just my friends. But I have a mix of people following me on Facebook. There's professional and personal. At all times, you've got to be aware of what you're posting. You are your brand.
Comes back to
Just
consistency.
quickly,
Yes.
Patty.
Yes.
just quickly, digital business cards. Do you feel that's a good marketing thing to have?
I don't think it's an important part of the mix. I just think, I use people's email signatures. Yeah,
Okay.
I haven't seen many of them. It's just my opinion. I wouldn't focus on it. If you do have one, obviously just make sure that it's consistent with your colors and your fonts, and
Right.
it's all part of your corporate ID. But yeah, I don't think most people need it. I don't know, Keegan, what do you think?
I think that's a great question, because I've had this discussion actually with Joe several times in regards to having a one pager or that virtual business card. And what I've found is that the times in which you use those are primarily in networking groups, right? It's when you're meeting people.
10 o'clock.
So it really depends, because there are so many different groups out there. We have B2B groups, B2C groups, all these different arrays. Again, it comes back to what Lisa really started with, and that's knowing your avatar. So to answer the question, is it advantageous to have a quick business profile card that you can virtually send, or that one pager that you can send to people? Yes and no. I think that it's important. If we're setting the tone, let's say that we were, Patty, let's say you and I were on a call right now and we just met for the first time. And I said, hey, look, I've got some people, I'm looking for this particular vertical. Let me shoot you a one pager. And now you think about that. The reality of you going back and looking at that one pager is so absolutely slim that the impact that I need to bring is actually on that conversation, not on the back end with this virtual business card or one pager that I can send. I've done them, by the way. I've done both. I've done the one pager and the virtual business card. And in my experience, they really just don't convert at all. So maybe it was the vernacular that was used. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe there were other factors outside of the actual business card or the one pager itself. But what I found is, back to that short attention span, the average person's not going to sit and read through that whole thing. So in my opinion, you gain way more consistency, professionalism, and reach and frequency based on the social media content than you do based on that one pager or that virtual business card. That's just my opinion.
I would just make sure your website is awesome. Like, I'm just going to look at your website. When I'm meeting somebody for the first time, I look at their LinkedIn and their website, and I'm good.
Okay.
I love it.
Thanks.
So guys, we're going to wrap up here, but before doing so, does anybody have any last minute questions, comments, side remarks, concerns, anything like that for us? Okay.
Thank you, Lisa. That was great.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was really great seeing all of you guys. And please feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions or follow up.
Amazing
And
job,
Dylan,
Lisa.
you and I will definitely talk.
So guys, real quick, I would love to throw this out before we all jump off is just one simple action item. And, Lisa brought up all this amazing content and really incredible presentation, Lisa. Thank you again so much. But the action item is simple.
You're welcome.
You had mentioned how powerful polls are. And maybe this is just a me thing. And if so, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I know I don't do polls. I don't know if you guys do, and maybe you do. I would love, in terms of an action item, if everybody could go on LinkedIn and post a poll. I would love to see the type of feedback and things that people generate from that. So if everybody is okay with that, I think that would be an incredible action item. Go out and throw a poll up there either today or sometime this week. And then next week on our last call on Tuesday, I'd love to hear how that went. If you got any results from that, or maybe you didn't at all, and that's okay. But I'm really interested to learn more about that in terms of an action item, creating that poll. Is everybody cool with that?
Yeah, just make sure it's an interesting question. Like, Janet might be interesting. Like, how comfortable are you on camera? Makes me want to throw up. Choice number one, choice number two, just make it so it'll help your business too. But it's an interesting question.
I'm in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining with us today on this Tuesday. Lisa, again, phenomenal job. Thank you so much for all the incredible content. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure to have conversations with everybody. Shoot a quick message in the chat. I look forward to seeing everybody on Tuesday. So real quick, so everybody's aware, Tuesday is our last call for this group. We already have the next one starting to generate. So if you are interested in being a speaker, shoot me a quick message. or if you'd like to join the next group, just let me know. But I'll be sending some information out moving forward. So guys, have an incredible Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time. Talk to you soon. Love you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kate.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.